Am I the only one who's reminded of Back to the Future Part 2 in this episode? They have many similarities. Many. So, Under the Lake, I gave a 10 out of 10. Before the Flood, yeah, it was good. Not as good as Under the Lake, but it's still best episode or best two-parter of season 9. And as I'm aware, there's the next one, two-parter, contains the Zygons. Let's see how that goes. But let's start off with the obvious. That pre-title sequence. Amazing, like, it reminded me of Listen a bit, where the Doctor's sort of talking to himself in the TARDIS about something that will link into the episode. But this time, he's actually breaking the fourth wall and talking to you. And I honestly expected the camera to turn around and have O'Donnell and Bennett just looking at him, having no idea what he's saying. But no, it was talking to the fourth wall, and that guitar. First of all, Beethoven's Fifth, amazing on the guitar, didn't think it would actually work. And the titles, make them the music. First of all, they're in sync, like The Witch is Familiar. Is it only the even number episodes that are in sync? Because all the odd number ones weren't. Interesting. Tell me if you noticed that. But also that the music being played on the electric guitar, the Doctor YouTube channel released it separately, and I have not been able to stop listening to it. Like, it's amazing. Just make it the new theme music, please. And good job Peter Capaldi managed to learn the guitar. But on to the rest of the episode. Clara, Cass and Lun, they did alright. Like, Clara seemed like totally different to what like she was in The Magician's Apprentice and Witch is Familiar. She actually felt like Clara that I knew, whereas in the other two episodes she just seemed like a totally different person. Lun and Cass, yeah, they're the same as normal. They're the same as last week, no real difference apart from Cass, that scene in the Faraday cage when they were trying to get that phone. I'll talk about that later. But what surprised me is the way it was set out. Like, in the first bit where the Doctor was talking to Clara on the TARDIS screen, and when he said that he had to die, you can't really change that, and then Clara actually snapped and shouted at him, that made sense, because unlike Rose, who, when the Doctor changed, she somehow got to grips with it in a 5-minute Children in Need episode, where Clara had all of Series 8, and now you actually feel like she's knows that he's the Doctor and he's got used to it. And she can still see that it's the same man she met. But then again, talking with the other team, the Doctor, Bennett and O'Donnell, I said that I had the funny feeling someone else would die, and that was O'Donnell. Shame, really, because I actually quite liked O'Donnell. And I liked all of them, apart from Pritchard, but luckily he doesn't speak in this episode, which is a plus. But when she died, I liked the bit where she steps out of TARDIS and pretends that she's got something in her shoe so she can just go to O'Bennett. O'Bennett? I'm shipping them now. Go to Bennett and just go, oh my god, it's bigger on the inside, how can it be bigger on the inside? Like, we haven't had that in ages. And I just love how she waits for the Doctor to walk away and then just absolutely goes all fangirl on Bennett and then just goes, right, let's go. That was brilliant. Bennett, yeah, he had a lot of development. He wasn't exactly the same as last week, where he was just a nervous / sensible one. He sort of had to go at the Doctor for letting O'Donnell die because he needed to test a theory. Let's talk about that. For somebody who knows about the Doctor's adventures, surely she should have known that splitting up was a bad idea. Like, I would have been okay with it if she was forced to split up, but she didn't. She could have easily caught up with them, which was annoying, and the Doctor let her die and then chose to save himself. Surely it's try to save her and then save himself, and then O'Donnell dies. Like, I know this Doctor is totally different and he doesn't really get along with people, and his way of liking people isn't the same as everybody else's. But this is just weird. Like, I really feel like he should have saved him. Let's talk about the new cast members. We have Prentice, played by Paul Kay, a Tavolian, like David Walliams-Gibbs. I like how the consistency, like, they still want to be served and ruled. They will only exist to be ruled, and Prentice literally goes the first time we're meeting, he's waving sort of like a surrender flag or a white handkerchief, like Gibbs was in the God Complex when he first ran into reception. Everyone else had weapons and Gibbs was just waving a white handkerchief at him, like Prentice. So that's good consistency. And I have to give it to the makeup. Paul K. Prentice just looks completely... like, he does not look intimidating at all in the makeup. But when he's a ghost, yeah, he look... how they did it, I will never know. But that is just amazing. And, of course, he's the funeral director. And, obviously, for a Tavolian, he has to go and hold a funeral for somebody who ruled them. Makes sense. And that is the Fisher King. Now, there are 3 parts of the Fisher King. One for the actual costume, one for the voice, and one for the roar. Yeah, I'll get to that later. Neil Fingleton as the Fisher King. He does well, but you could tell that sometimes he was struggling with that costume. Like, when he stepped out into the daylight, you could tell he's sort of, like, having trouble walking to that spaceship. Like, it's like, almost there. It did not look smooth at all. Like, in the dark, I have to say, the Fisher King looks perfect in the dark, and, like, that shot when he's walking past that window. That's where he should be, like, if he had something where he couldn't go into the light. Bit cliched, I know, but... would have made him look a whole lot better, because when he was in the daylight and walking to the ship, I still don't know why he didn't bring the Doctor with him. And then it's like, oh dear, the Time Lord lied. Then the dam breaks, and it floods, and he has the hilariously bad CGI shot of him getting pushed back. Like, why didn't you just engulf it? Engulf? I cannot speak today. Engulf, or just cut away. That shot was hilariously bad, the way he just flew back. Like, he froze in position and flew back. That was just something that should have been funny. But, talking of the Fisher King, the voice, Peter Serafinowicz, just managed to say that. Peter Serafinowicz voiced Darth Maul, bit of trivia there, and he does brilliantly. Like, I don't know what he sounds like in real life, because I've only ever heard him as Darth Maul, and I don't really think that's good enough to go on. But there is a lot of... he sounds like an intimidating presence, like the way he manages to change his voice. And him and the Doctor, the scene between him and the Doctor, Peter Capaldi, the way the Fisher King towers above him, like Neil is one of the tallest actors I think he's had on Doctor Who. Like the guy who played Skaldak and the Minotaur, I can't remember his name. But they are really tall. And that's probably helps rather than putting a guy on stilts or something. But I don't know. I can't imagine that Peter Capaldi was actually listening to Neil on set, or Neil had Peter Capaldi's lines recorded, or probably they just had their lines read to them by a producer or somebody. And they still do well. Like, Peter Capaldi has something to work with, obviously, because he has a great massive costume, or great big bloke towering over him, like, according to Doctor Who Extra, like how he normally does. But I'm not sure. Neil does well because he probably just had the recording to work with. But here's what I don't get about the Fisher King. They cast Corey Taylor, who's apparently a singer in Slipknot, which is a rock band, to do the Raw. I don't get that. Like, how do you... I mean, he does well as a Raw. Like, Raw sounded good, but couldn't you have got Neil to do a Raw? Or, considering rock bands usually do the screaming and the roaring, is that why you casted him? I didn't really get that. Like, I know I've been criticising the past few series about guest stars like Sanjeev Bhaskar, that they were wasted, and Colin McFarlane, but at least they got lines. Corey Taylor just got a rah, and then probably would have taken him about 5 minutes, and then he could leave. Seriously. But let's talk about Cass and Lon. That scene in the Faraday cage where Lon had to go get the phone. It's clever how the ghost couldn't see him because he hadn't seen the writing. That was clever, but apparently it's very disrespectful not to translate for the person you're signing for. Apparently I heard that from another review. So I'm guessing the only reason why he didn't translate because what Cass was saying wasn't appropriate for family television. That's what I got out of it, because she didn't look like she was saying, "Are you mad?" She sort of said some line. Yeah, she sounds like she was saying something that belonged in Torchwood. And I don't even speak sign language, I could just pick that up automatically. But when Clara and Cass go after London, Clara notices that Cass is completely gone. And she sort of says, "Oh, of course, how could I be so stupid?" And she realised that she wouldn't have heard that, and she doesn't speak sign language anyway, so she probably would have done that anyway. But that scene with Moran and with the axe, Daniel O'Hara, brilliant. That scene was brilliantly directed, and it's such a shame that the Doctor and Fisher King conversation, though it was brilliant, that got in the way of it, but clever how the Cass never turned round because she couldn't hear the sound of the axe grinding against the floor. And I'm not an expert on deaf people, far from it, but I don't think when they reach down and touch the floor, they get some sort of radar daredevil vision. Does that happen? Biologists out there, does that happen? Don't think that does. But, hey, the scene was awesome. It was directed awesome. It's awesome. And then Clara manages to grab her at the last second, and that axe swing nearly misses her. That was good, and then it turned out to be a trap. And the trap within a trap. Like, the Doctor ended up being a hologram. The Doctor Ghost ended up being a hologram, hence the bootstrap paradox. Okay, I guess, but sort of like the Doctor knew this was going to happen, so he had to make sure it acted out perfectly, blah-de-blah-de-blah. It's explained a lot better in the episode. That was okay, and the fact that the Doctor used that suspended animation chamber to hide himself away, that was clever. Very clever, and the way he just got her when you expect it to be the Fisher King, and then you just see Peter Capaldi getting up. And the sonic glasses, put to another good use this week, as getting rid of the words in their heads. Can't really imagine Sonic Screwdriver doing that. I probably will be comparing the Sonic Screwdriver and Sonic Sunglasses a lot in this series, just to let you know. Honestly, I still prefer Sonic Screwdriver. Bring that back, Stephen Moffat. Anyway, to the TARDIS. Now, I like it when the Doctor said, I'm going to save it myself, like, who's going to stop me, and then the TARDIS does. That makes sense. Although I would have thought it would have done that in the Waters of Mars, but hey-ho, they're both good stories. Then they end up in quite half an hour ago in their own timeline. Bit Back to the Future Part 2, because obviously if you've seen it, you know Marty has to go back and get the Sport Almanac in 1955. And that meant walking around with the Marty McFly from the last movie in 1955. Yeah, that sort of reminded me a lot about Back to the Future Part 2, because obviously they had to avoid being seen by their past selves, like Marty McFly did in Back to the Future Part 2. But this did lead to a lot of comedy, like when Bennett tried to get up and tell O'Donnell that she was going to die, and the Doctor just tackled him to the ground and they both fell over, and O'Donnell was the only one to turn around, like none of the others did. As I said, well directed. The only thing that I really have a problem with is the Fisher King, like he should have stayed in the dark. And O'Donnell, yeah, the way the list was clever, but the way that it was set, like she dies, then the Doctor becomes all, oh, I must save myself. That really didn't work. And I know he sort of said, you've got to stay here in case Clara calls. I wouldn't really call that trying to save her, more of somebody needs to stay here in case she calls. Be the phone girl sort of thing. That didn't really work, but then again, it was okay. And I mean, the story overall was good compared to Under the Lake. I mean, the setup was definitely better than the payoff, but as I said, I still think they're figuring out how to do a two-parter. Like, they can't really remember how to do it. But I have a funny feeling, with the amount of two-parters we're getting, like, there's the Zygon one, and no doubt the end of series will be a two-part, so that's 4 two-parters. Hopefully that will get them back into the swing of things, and they'll remember how to do it. But, overall, I give this episode a 9 out of 10. It was good, but it didn't really live up to the standards of Under the Lake, as the setup was better than the payoff. But sometimes that happens, like, it's a 50-50 chance there's 1 out of 3 possibilities. Setup's better than the payoff's better than the setup, like in The Magician's Apprentice and Witches of Familiar, or they're both good. Like, excellent, like, you could both enjoy them. But I can't really think of many examples of that. I know a few, but Stolen Earth and Journey's End, I felt like they were equal, and same with Impossible Astronaut and Day of the Moon. I felt like they were equal standard. But, as I said, 9 out of 10, which gives, overall, Under Lake and Before the Flood gets a 19 out of 20. Good. Very good. Next week we have The Girl Who Died, starring Maisie Williams from off of Game of Thrones. And to be honest, I haven't seen Game of Thrones, and apparently I know that's a crime nowadays, but please tell me if she's good in it, or she's terrible, because any Game of Thrones actor who crosses into another fandom, people go mental. I have no idea why. Must be because they're good actors. But anyway, see you next time for The Girl Who Died.